longest serving senator status into the 9th term, and him being the first sitting Senate President pro tem to lose that position in a primary. Winder, who represents a sliver of West Boise and a notch of North Meridian, lost to challenger Josh Kaiser by 281 votes. Senator Winder has been in public service and politics for decades, elected to the Senate in 2008, elevated to leadership in 2010, but that was all but eliminated in what was, without a doubt, the biggest upset of yesterday's election. This morning, Senator Winder sat down with us to talk about the result of that race and his time in the Senate. He wanted to thank his supporters in what was District 14 and is now District 20 for their support the past 16 years. Winder was a bit tired this morning, having stayed up way past midnight to catch the results and then getting up, like always, at 4:30 a.m. to start his day. But mostly, he was just as surprised as anyone with the outcome.
Oh yeah, it was a shocker to me. You know, I knew that it would probably be a close race because, one, it wasn't a presidential primary, so you don't get quite the same turnout. The party itself was out promoting my opponent, which they don't normally do in a primary. They're normally neutral. So there were just a lot of things going on, I think. You know, my opponent, you know, worked hard. He was out walking neighborhoods and talking to people and while we were in session. So I think there were a lot of factors that went into it.
What else made the difference, do you think?
Well, I think there's lots of things. Obviously, the amount of money that came into, you know, the race from the Young Americans for Liberty and Make Liberty Win group. But I think they probably spent, you know, $200,000, maybe $250,000 to defeat me. But I think it's hard to, you know, once people get the idea that was projected that, you know, I was the Swamp King, that I was, you know, opposed to, you know, Second Amendment rights and all that I was a big spender, it's tough to get that out of people's mind. And they had their message out there, you know, for a month or so before we were able to even get into the market.
So just too little, too late?
Too little, too late, I think.
Would you look at your race and say it's like either a microcosm of the way things are going in either the GOP or Idaho politics?
Both. You know, I think they were able to pick me off with using a lot of out-of-state money, really ugly, dirty politics in their promotions. So I think, unfortunately, since they were able to pick me off, it'll probably be easier now to say, okay, well, give us more money to do this in our state, and we'll knock some of these other guys off. I mean, they came close to getting the speaker. And I think, you know, as our parties narrowed down the primary process, that's hurt what I would consider a true conservative approach. But it's because it's easier for the far right and the far left to have a lot of passion, and the people in between really don't get energized very much. I think the turnout hurt. I think the fact we didn't have a presidential primary tied to the regular primary hurt the turnout, and I think that hurts, you know, the more traditional Idaho conservative.
Do you leave with good thoughts like you're about politics and Idaho and the State House and what goes on here?
Well, I leave here with the fact Idaho's a great state, has great people. Nobody's indispensable, no one's irreplaceable. So I think there are good people here that'll still do good things for the state of Idaho.
Senator Winder told us he wishes more good people would get involved in politics, maybe run for office. As for his plans post-term, he plans to stay involved in local politics, help out anyone he can. He will continue to serve on several boards. He'll focus on his ministry work and spend more time with family, you know, like watching his grandkids play sports and compete in karate. Oh yeah, he will also now have his winters back. So Senator Winder, at the age of 78, hopes to get back into skiing, he told us, something he hasn't been able to do in a dozen years or so. So keep an eye out for him on the slopes at Bogus next season.
Please welcome to the stage your MC for the night, Sean Tabor!
Second night, YALCON. Are we having a good time? That's what I thought. Now, this Chuck Winder fella, right? I haven't seen any photos of him on the slopes. I assume he's spending time with his grandchildren. But the only thing that we know for sure is that Chuck was back in the Capitol next session after Young Americans for Liberty door knockers took him out, to do, guess what? Lobby. But against or for what? He was showing up as a true conservative, as an anti-school choice lobbyist, trying to stop universal school choice from happening. So, if that's what being a true conservative means, Chuck, then count me out of whatever club you're in. I like the people in this room a whole of a hell lot better. Don't you agree? And so, as Barrett Young reminded us, right, when the tool doesn't work anymore, when your hammer is broken, then you replace it, right? We can't just knock out these rhinos and these bad politicians. We've got to get people on the direct path to power who are doing good, who are standing tall against the uniparty, and who are demanding that we restore freedom now. And we're about to hear from some of those people in the state legislatures across the country. You're about to hear, and please hold your applause till the end, you're about to hear from the person leading the fight for hospital price transparency and free market health care in Ohio, State Representative Ron Ferguson. You're about to hear from the woman who led the fight for constitutional carry in Kentucky, State Rep Savannah Maddox. And you're about to hear from the folks who led the fight to end the COVID mandates in Minnesota and Texas, respectively, Representative Brian Harrison and former State Representative Eric Mortensen. So please welcome these Liberty champions to the stage.
Guys, thank you for joining us tonight, representatives. You guys have all earned the reputation of being principled champions inside your legislature. Can we give them another round of applause? So we're going to talk about what it's like to be in the Capitol and be that Liberty champion and get these guys' opinions and counsel to everybody here tonight. So I'm going to go through a series of questions. My objective here, or my goal, is to get everybody's response. We'll look at the time and maybe we'll change the format up a bit. But the first question, what was your why? You get in there. Why even run for office and thrust yourself into the political fray and be willing to go against the grain? We'll start with Representative Harrison here.
Great. Well, thank you for having me. It's great to be here. As somebody who flew in from Texas, I saw that it was 82 degrees here, and I was very grateful that I was good to be somewhere where it's nice and frigid this time of year. So thrilled to be with you guys. And by the way, as somebody who, and I'm sure my colleagues can appreciate this, as somebody who talks a lot on panels about government and politics, it's very rare to be in a room where the word liberty is used much at all, and it's in y'all's name. So are we excited tonight to get to make liberty cool again in the United States of America? Well, without being too cliche about it, see, I'm not one of those, I'm not quite old enough to say, oh, I've got young kids and they're your age. My kids are not that young. I've got 4 kids between the ages of 12 and 6. And not to be too cliche about it, but I am extraordinarily concerned, as I'm sure you are, you wouldn't be here, about the direction that both our nation is headed, as well as the way that the great state of Texas is headed. And if we cannot protect liberty, if we cannot protect individual freedom, if we cannot protect the principles that made both the state of Texas and our country great, the principles of limited government, low taxes, low regulations, okay, governments that are constrained in their power by the limits that are placed on it by both our federal and our state constitutions, if we can't protect liberty in Texas, guys, I hate to say it, that doesn't bode well for the rest of the country. I'm a proud Texan. I do believe as goes Texas, so goes the nation. And let me tell you guys, if we can't do the right job as Republicans in a state that's totally dominated by Republicans, guys, it's not good enough anymore just to not be Democrats. It's got to mean something if you're going to call yourself a liberty champion. It's got to mean something if you're going to say you're a liberty person and you believe in conservative values, or if you're going to call yourself a Republican. Because I'm sick and tired, let me know if you agree, of Democrats fighting harder for the future than Republicans. It's time to change that.
Well, that was a great start. Thank you very much, Representative Harrison.
Yeah.
Representative Maddox, what is your why? Why thrust yourself into the political fray here?
I am an unapologetic political proselyte of the great Congressman Thomas Massey. And I ran for office because I wanted to create the distinction between someone who runs as a Republican and someone who is willing to fight for the principles of limited government, to uphold the Constitution, to insist on fiscal restraint. I wanted to set that standard just like Congressman Massey had done at the federal level. And it hasn't always been easy, and I know we're going to get into that in a little bit, but I really am truly honored to have the opportunity to be here today and to be involved with Young Americans for Liberty. They are the one organization that has stood true and stood the test of time in their advocacy and their recruitment and their education of young Americans to take up the conservative cause.
Representative Ferguson, tough act to follow here.
It's
What's
tough.
your why?
Yeah, so no, I just remember when I decided I was going to run for office. So it was actually during the Supreme Court confirmation hearing of Justice Brett Kavanaugh. And the reason why is I was actually working in the liberty movement, and I was watching these hearings, and I just saw where the Democrats were just really attacking him and his family, and it had nothing to do with him. It was the way they were behaving. And me realizing, like, they have no ideas to stand on. They only have personal attacks against us. They know that they're losing the fight, and they're going to try and silence us. They're going to try to silence our speech. They're going to try to do whatever they can so that people don't rise up. And if it's going to be, it's up to me. I got to get involved, and that's what decided me to run.
Nice. So let's talk about some wins. And I want to set the table a little bit. Traditionally, we think of wins as I passed a bill. And I want to ask this question through a little broader scope. Talk about your wins, your toughest battles, your war stories, whether that was passing a bill, because that is a win, or maybe it's influencing the political environment or changing the conversation in your states. We'll start with Representative Maddox for this one.
In my first term, due to the help of so many grassroots activists across the Commonwealth and across the nation, I was able to pass constitutional in Kentucky, making us the 19th state, I believe at that time, that citizens no longer had to ask for permission or pay recurring fees to the government in order to be able to exercise their Second Amendment rights. It was an extremely uphill climb to accomplish that. We also passed campus-free speech, one of my bills that year, which was another thing. I was invited to the White House, so I think other legislators were as well across the nation that had worked on that issue. But recently, I was also able to update Kentucky's concealed carry law to allow 18 to 20-year-olds, which it should have been that way from the beginning. So those were some big wins, and I've obviously did a lot of work with mask mandates, COVID, and all that kind of stuff. But really the biggest win of all, to me, is just never compromising on principle. Whether you pass a bill, whether you don't pass a bill, if you are who you say you are, if you uphold the Constitution, if you stick to your principles and never give in, that is the win.
Representative Ferguson, the wins, your battles, your war stories, whether it's policy or changing and affecting the political environment.
Yeah, I would say a pretty big one was actually in my first term. We were trying to pass Save Women's Sports, and so the House had actually voted multiple times to pass Save Women's Sports, and it got over to the Senate. The Senate actually took college athletes out, so they wanted to say, hey, once you get to college, it's fine for men to play in women's sports, and they, yeah. You can boo that. It's a good one. So they sent that back to us in the House. Myself, there's another state rep here with me, my good friend Jennifer Gross, a guy, Derek Marin, that's running for Congress right now against Marcy Kaptur. He was in there with us. But there were 9 of us who actually voted no on that version of Save Women's Sports. They put us in that position where we had to vote no because we didn't want to leave our college athletes behind. But then we found out that we were calling their bluff, because once we voted that one down, we were able to get the full bill. And now in the state of Ohio, because 9 conservatives stood the line, men can't play in women's sports.
That's awesome. Representative Harrison, the wins, the war stories. What do you got?
Yeah, let me start off with the back to basics on this. Okay, let's see if we all agree on some fundamentals here. I actually think it's far more important to get bad laws off the books than it is to put new laws on the books that are going to burden the lives, okay, and take more of our freedoms and our liberties. So I reject out of hand the notion that the establishment at both the federal level and the state level tries to indoctrinate, especially state level lawmakers, that the only way you can be successful, the only way you can be effective as a lawmaker is by 2 things. The number of bills you pass, these are the lies they tell you. The number of bills you pass or the number of leadership positions you hold. Because the second you believe that, guess what, you're owned. And guess what? Because the only thing, and they'll let you do it, by the way. If you want to play the game, okay, of the swamps game, they'll let you pass bills. They'll be meaningless most of the time. Or they'll put you on leadership positions. They'll promise you big, fat PAC checks, right? And your life can be wonderful. But the only thing it's going to cost you is your voice and your vote. And the second you hand leadership your voice and your vote, you no longer work for the people back home. You work for the swamp. And as far as I'm concerned, Republicans, and especially people who hold themselves out as liberty people, we need more elected officials willing to stand up to the swamp and fewer that will bow down to their corruption. And so, even though I can tell I'm among friends here. I love you guys. This is great. So I can say, but what they want you to believe is if you stand up to the corrupt leadership team, that you cannot make a difference. You can't impact policy. And I'm here to tell you the exact opposite of that is true. And even though I refuse to go along with the totally corrupt leadership team in the Democrat-controlled Texas House, and yes, Democrats run the Texas House. As we speak today, a Barack Obama lawyer is our House parliamentarian. Democrats chair our committees. Democrats write our budget. Okay, as we speak right now in Texas. All right, I stood up to them. In fact, I made a motion to vacate the corrupt rhino speaker of the Texas House of Representatives. Are y'all okay with booting liberal rhinos when they get in power and get a little bit too corrupt? Yes, y'all are. Well, they told me they were going to destroy my career, right? They're going to kill my bills, kill my amendments. Let me tell you what, even though I stood up to their corruption, by unifying with the people, by exposing the corruption, I was able to deliver more conservative policy victories over the last couple of years than the rest of the Republicans in the Texas government put together when I found out that the Texas A&M was using millions and millions of dollars to push discriminatory DEI into my alma mater, Texas A&M. I led a one-man crusade for 8 months. I was told nobody would be able to get rid of the president of a university that big, but I'm here today to tell you that guy is now the former president of Texas A&M University. We got him out of there. Tax dollars are supposed to be for education, not indoctrination, okay? And when I found out that the Texas government had running maybe the biggest discriminatory DEI program in America, Texas was awarding contracts not on the basis of excellence, not on the basis of merit, not on the basis of price, but on the basis of race and gender. And I forced one state agency to testify in my committee that in the last year he had spent over $1 billion on race-based contracts. I exposed them. I went public. The only Republican in Texas to do this, and I couldn't get a bill passed to stop the DEI program, but I took the unprecedented step of going to the national media and referring them to the Department of Justice, and within 48 hours, I was able to force shut the biggest discriminatory DEI program in the Texas government. So when we stand together and unite with the people, we can deliver real victories for liberty.
Well, I've got a follow-up on that.
Oh, yeah,
because there's a very common perception that should you dare stand on principle, that you become politically vulnerable.
Oh, yeah.
So I want to talk about that. Talk about this perception that leadership wants to drill in members' heads that, hey, if you dare go against leadership, if you dare stay principled, you make yourself politically vulnerable. I'm just curious, talk about that. You think there's truth to that? And then what can you as liberty legislators be doing to ensure that is complete nonsense?
Well, I'll start with the last first, and then I know I'm going to have some good comments here from my cousins, but they've treated us the same way. They will do everything they can to destroy you. You're going to have, and I've had every liberal media outlet in the entire country try to take me out of me. Stephen Colbert hired an actor to play me. I was the whole cold open to the Late Show when I'm not making this up. Like, if you stand on principle, the left, and by the left, I don't just mean the Democrats. I mean the Democrats, and I mean fake Republicans. I mean fake conservative champions. They will do everything they can to destroy you. They will kick you off committees. I've been kicked off committees. When we were trying to pass a fake school choice bill that was going to have government take over, homeschool and private school, I said, I support school choice as much as anybody alive, but I can't let this out of committee. They kick me off the committee. They kill the bills. They'll smear you. They'll make it socially unacceptable to talk to in the chamber, okay? And they will run primary opponents against you, and they will give them hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. But to his question, what can you do about it? You can make sure that the hundreds of thousands of people back home know that you, when you were presented a choice to have a great life and cave in the swamp or stand up and fight for the liberty of the next generation, you chose to fight for them. And I believe that people, when they believe you're fighting for them, they're going to reward you and they're going to keep returning you. And I don't think the swamp can match the enthusiasm of people who care more about liberty for their kids and grandkids than they do popularity in the corrupt swamps of your state capital or Washington, D.C.
Representative Maddox, what is your take? Are you politically vulnerable if you stand on principle?
In any system of governments, power is currency. And as a liberty legislator, you have to approach it through the lens of not seeking power, because power can be taken from you. You have to seek principle. And I look at it like this: the strongest asset that I have, the biggest sword that I can wield, is my voting record, because it means that all those mail slicks that I sent out during campaign season, that I meant what I said, and that I went down to Frankfurt and did what I said I was going to do. And yes, whether it's Frankfurt or any state legislature across the nation, it's going to be the same situation. That power is ubiquitous, and whether Republicans are in charge or whether Democrats are in charge, really, there is a uniparty. It is real, and it is where power centralizes. And if you speak out against that, if you go against the grain, if you do what you were sent to do by your constituents who elected you because you said you believed in the consent of the governed and the principles of liberty, then you're going to face flack, and they're going to try to destabilize you and remove any power that you have. That is when you have to double down and dig in harder. That is the only way that you will survive. If survival itself is the only virtue that you have, you were long gone before you ever showed up to begin with. So you have to dig in. And I have found that even when I am the most hated, that is when I am the most powerful. It's not power that I seek to begin with, it's principle, but still, whenever I dig in and I speak louder and I swim upstream on an issue, that is what gets people attention. That is what preserves your political capital. And that is what will ensure your success in the next election, is that you led on something. You actually stood for something. That means a lot to people, that genuineness, it really does.
For sure. Representative Ferguson, you just had a primary challenger, yet you're sitting here. Are you politically vulnerable if you stay in principle?
You're politically vulnerable when you allow fear to control your actions. And you have to stand true to principle. I did just face the most expensive state house primary in Ohio history. The establishment spent about $2 million against me to my $250,000. So it was like a 8-to-1 spend. And I got 62.5% of the vote, so it was like a 25%. And in addition to that, before it happened, one of the things was, the Speaker of the House, one of his close friends, actually put a political bounty out on me for any $10,000 to any basically information that would damage my political career. And those are the kind of dirty tricks that they'll be able to play. But my favorite moment of all was I actually just did a interview not too long ago. And they asked me, like, well, what do you think people's perception of the speaker is now? And my response was, all bark, no bite.
Oh, I love that. I can tell you, a speaker hates hearing something like that, no doubt about it.
Correct.
All right, well, moving on here. We've talked about it can be an unglamorous job being that principled legislator inside of a Capitol. And I would emphasize it can be unglamorous inside the Capitol, but certainly the people outside of the Capitol really appreciate it for it. And I think you three sitting here is proof that the people that matter, it can be a very glamorous job and rewarding and fulfilling. But talk about your experience in the Capitol and the friction that can get created when it is kind of an unglamorous thing when you show up to, imagine working at a new job and all of your coworkers hate your guts. Talk about that. Let's start with Representative. I don't think we've started with Ferguson yet.
Okay. I'll actually say there's like three factions. The faction that's really with you, those that hate your guts like you're talking about, and there's like another third that like they're not really going to stress it either way. But the third that really hates you, what is just mind-blowing is when I vote no on something, or if I offer an amendment to try to actually turn a bad bill into a liberty bill, I'm a horrible person. I've put them in a bad situation. I should be kicked out of Columbus. But the inverse, they don't see it. So what am I supposed to do? Just sit there? Just let this bad thing happen? Just let it hurt the state of Ohio? They don't see, that contradiction in their own thinking. It really doesn't bother me because I could feel the same way the other way around. But typically those that are the conservatives, we know we're doing what's right. So you just keep doing it.
Nice. Representative Harrison, how do you manage that friction when you get in the Capitol and you've got your Republican colleagues that are supposed to be with you, but oftentimes aren't?
Most of the time aren't. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, because what happens is for so many people when you run for office, even if they had good reasons for running and they were sincere when they first ran, it's really hard once you get elected. You basically have a new peer group that you're like locked in a cell with for half the year or more during session, whereas most people, they run their peer group their whole life was their neighbors, the people they go to school with, their church with, the farmers, the ranchers, the doctors, their friends back home, their family. That was their peer group. Well, now all of a sudden, humans are social people, animals. We want to be liked. And your new peer group, all of a sudden, well, who are they? Well, they're other politicians. They're lobbyists. They're special interest donors willing to write you massive checks if you just engage in some corporate welfare. And by the way, corporate welfare is nothing more than theft, okay? Government doing what would be illegal if a private sector did it. And Texas, by the way, we got corporate welfare on steroids, okay? And so what they want the least is to be exposed, because we're basically offered, and I was told this the first time when I found out that Democrats were chairing our committees. I mean, I assumed every Republican would be mad about it. I went on national television, and I was like, guys, it's like AOC is chairing, energy and commerce, or imagine putting Nancy Pelosi in charge of a committee in a Republican body. Well, that's literally what happens in the Texas legislature, and I was called in by the leadership team when I was brand new, and of course, they always want to help you. It's always in disguise, like they care so much about you, right? And they're like, Brian, we want to tell you, there's clearly some confusion. I'm like, well, I don't think so. What are you talking about? And they go, well, you are confused. It's clear to us that you believe you got elected to a legislative body. And I'm like, I do. And they go, no, let me tell you the truth. You got elected to a fraternity, and you need to act like it. And what that means is you can't tell the people back home all the power we're giving to the Democrats. You can't tell them how we tell them we're going to stand up to those leftists that are going to bankrupt the country. But then when they're not looking, we're going to vote to steal $1.5 billion for them and give it to liberal Hollywood. Or we're going to steal $5 billion and set up a Texas NIH to study healthcare, to study psychedelics, or to give corporate welfare to every possible, liberal, rich, woke, multinational corporation. Or we're going to spend, $20 million a year indoctrinating the next generation of leftist Marxist progressivism. You can't tell them that. The second you believe it, not only have you forfeited any kind of actual power you have, you forfeited the moral authority to be there, and I'm sorry. I'm not going to sacrifice so much to sit down there and keep a chair warm while our state and our country are driven off a liberal cliff. It's not worth it. And so what you've got to do is let them know that their fear tactics aren't going to work for you. And we need more politicians willing to stand up and do the right thing, even if that means they're standing alone on the floor of a Capitol building somewhere. And let's tell you, when you heard about these heartbreaking floods in the Texas Hill Country last year, well, in the knee-jerk reaction to do something, okay, what the Texas Republicans did was let the Democrats write a bill that basically made every Christian camp illegal in the state of Texas. That was how we responded to the camps. You know how many Republicans joined me in voting against that bill? 0. I had to go alone with crying members of the heartbreaking story. I got young kids. My heart breaks for these kids. Their families are up there crying in the galleries, and they believed that if the families were up there, nobody would vote against the camp safety bill, which effectively was a government takeover of every Christian camp in Texas. I was the only one to vote no against it. Or when our lieutenant governor and the other Republicans wanted to make their top priority banning all hemp products in the state. I'm so sorry. I'm sick of this. Like, we're going to force taxpayers to fund psychedelics, but we're going to make grandma's hemp shampoo illegal in the state of Texas. We're going to ban hemp, and we're going to ban vapes. Guys, banning things is not the solution to all of society's problems, okay? Freedom matters more, and we need more elected officials willing to stand up and speak the truth to the corrupt establishment down there, even if it's going to cost you politically, because the next generation matters too much.
Awesome. Thank you, Representative Harrison. Representative Maddox, the friction in the Capitol, you have to go against your own team sometimes.
Yeah, you do. And after this term, I will be coming up on a decade, believe it or not, in the legislature, which seems crazy to say, but I am a consummate no voter. I vote no on bills, often have been the only no vote on bills. And now we have a little bit bigger of a coalition in Kentucky, and I've got some folks that vote no with me. But it has been lonely from time to time, especially whenever I first began, because, like you said, everyone wants to be liked. They want to be accepted within their peer group, and it takes a lot of courage to be willing to not be liked. And yeah, there were a lot of caucus meetings in which I was persona non grata, and a lot of folks were upset with me. But what I have found over the course of time is that they no longer try to intimidate me. They no longer try to persuade me to vote a certain way or not to call an amendment. That's another really big source of friction whenever they've got this perfect bill in their mind, you know, skid is grease, they've got it ready to go, and then the Liberty legislators put some amendments on it to try to switch it up a little bit. That's a big source of contention. But they don't try to persuade me or bully me anymore, you know, fellow caucus members, so forth, so on, because they know they're not going to change my mind. They know that if I've said how I'm going to vote, that it's a matter of principle. And I think that it takes time for Liberty legislators, once they get in, to develop that level of respect. And you can only develop that if you are willing to just stand your ground and not be pushed around and not compromise on your values. It does get easier, but, you know, every now and again, I've got to be ready to roll up my sleeves and get in there and scrap. We still do that.
Yes, yes. Nice. I think we have got two more questions, and I will try to save some time for a handful of questions from the crowd here. Representative Harrison, you brought something up, and I want a follow-up question on this. There seems to be this unwritten rule in Capitol buildings amongst the members of the legislature. They call themselves members, for those who don't know. That, hey, you keep my voting record secret, and I'll keep your voting record secret. How do you overcome that?
Well, I just don't play that game at all. And as far as I'm concerned, the absolute lowest hanging fruit, like the bare minimum voters should have in terms of expectations of people who call themselves representatives, is to tell them the truth about what's going on in their government. If we owe you nothing else, we owe you that. And people have forgotten this. I mean, they've totally forgotten the number one role, okay, of government. A lot of people, even when they get close, they're still wrong. They go, well, government's, you know, that's where we get our freedoms and our liberty. No. The number one role of government is to protect our freedoms and our liberties. Our liberties and our freedoms don't come from government.
They come from
okay, our founders understood that our freedoms and our liberties are inalienable. They are bestowed upon us by our Creator, and it's the principal role of government to protect them. And the last thing, especially people who hold themselves out as conservative Republicans, it's the easiest thing, especially, this is more true, the redder the state you are, the bigger the problem you have, okay, with keeping Republicans accountable. Okay, because if you're a Republican state like Texas, what happens is liberals and Democrats run for office all over the state, not as Democrats, but because they know they couldn't get elected. So they run as Republicans. All right, so they deceive their voters. So the last thing they want is transparency and exposure, and they hate it. I mean, the number of times I talk about conflict, I've literally had to have sergeant-at-arms drag members away from me and pull them off of my body, literally basically assaulting me on the floor of the House, or literally hitting me while I'm up there at the microphone speaking against a bill. I'm not making this up. Okay, the sergeants had to come and separate them. This has happened on numerous occasions. All right, they hate it, because what they hate is their voters knowing the truth. And so what I've done, and what I would encourage all of you to encourage whoever represents you, demand that they lean into it. Don't shy away from the transparency, guys. Transparency is like kryptonite in the swamp. Okay, let me tell you what. I never tweeted in my life. I've been in and out of government at the high levels of federal for like 20 years. Never got elected at the state level about 5 years ago. Didn't know how to tweet. I learned that none of these politicians, these self-righteous, smug, establishment, liberal politicians, There is nothing they hate more than their voters back home knowing how they're selling them out. And so you guys should see what it's like. I just started posting video. You don't have to take my word, but I'll just video it on the floor. I'll post it to social media, and you can watch these conservative Republicans voting to give Hollywood billions of dollars. And guys, you should see the floor of the Texas House when my cell phone comes out and they see I'm recording. I mean, it's like cockroaches screwing, okay? They do not want to be exposed. But the bottom line is this. You got to have more people standing on principle. The next generation matters. It's going to be uncomfortable. You're going to get hated. You're going to get primaried. You're going to get slimed. You're going to get smeared. But you've got to remember, you do not work for people that have an office in the Capitol. I tell folks, I've got 200,000 bosses, and not one of them has an office in the Texas Capitol. Never forget who you work for.
All right, this question's for all three of you. We are in a room, a giant ballroom filled with hundreds and hundreds of college students, largely college students. What is your best advice? Well, I think we're all about the same age up here. We have to hand the baton, the torch of liberty to the next generation. What's your best advice for the young kids here today? We'll start with Representative Maddox.
Do not fall for populism. Do not buy into this mentality where you can just say you're a Republican, have an R beside your name, and automatically be worthy of anyone's votes. If you sign up to help someone, if you get behind a candidate, or if you run for office yourself, be certain that you are aware of what it means to be a limited government conservative. You know, be familiar with what it really will look like to have to uphold the Constitution even when it's uncomfortable. And with regard to fiscal restraint, obviously what we have seen at the federal level is just beyond comprehension, and that's in a situation where those are all folks who are claiming to be Republican. That's not going to get better if we don't dig in our heels and say, no, I am no longer going to support the lesser of evils. I am no longer going to vote for someone just because they have an R beside their name. I'm not going to donate to them. I'm not going to support them because they aren't good enough. In order to make that distinction, we have to pay attention to voting records. Like the previous question that you asked, you can palpably feel the hatred and the animus anytime that I get my phone out to take a picture of the board on the House floor to show people how the legislatures are actually voting on issues. But that is the most important thing that I could impart to you. Do not settle for less. Do not allow charlatans to hijack what we know to be the principles of limited government and sell you a bill of goods just because it's popular or just because it goes viral. I am very concerned for the future of our country because of the situation that we're in, not just in terms of the deficit, not just in terms of the debt, not just in terms of the massive wasteful spending, but also the expansion of surveillance. All of these things that we are seeing happening, like Flock. It's not just Flock, so many types of surveillance and all of these things that are invading on our privacy and our constitutional rights. We as conservatives, we as people who are liberty-minded have to say, no, it stops with me. We're not going to abide by that no matter what the consequences of that are. So I ask you to join me. I'm going to do everything I can with the position that's been entrusted to me to fight back against that nanny state garbage, and I ask you to join me.
Representative Ferguson, what is your best advice to pass the mantle on here to the next generation?
So, in any sport, you need to score to win. It's more important to be on offense than defense. And I think you need to stay on offense at all times. You have the ability to speak out like we didn't when we were growing up. We didn't have the ability to turn on a camera, to be on TikTok, to be on YouTube, to put podcasts out. You have that ability. You need to use that ability and continue to shine the light. We've talked about transparency. I mean, that's what politicians absolutely hate. But they want to surveil you. We were talking about that. Well, you need to put the surveillance on them with your own camera because they actually signed up to be filmed. They signed up to have their records put on display for everybody else. And you got to make sure that it actually happens because it will not happen on its own.
Nice. All right, Representative Harrison, we're passing the torch. What's your best advice for these
Try
guys?
to be quick. First of all, I cannot even tell you how much it warms my heart to see so many young people committed to liberty. Like it's so exciting because if there is a demographic in our country that should care the most about what happens in government and public policy, it should be you. And you know why? 2 reasons. You're going to be around longer, okay? So it's going to affect you more. But guess what? Y'all are going to be the ones footing the bill for everything knuckleheads my age are doing. Okay, so you guys should care more than anybody else. And so what I would say, this is you guys, okay? And by the way, you guys are going to be up here one day, all right? So we're counting on you. But I would say to you, some simple things you can do. Go find from your state and federal office, go down to city council, school boards, state rep, state senator, Congress senator. You find the people who are elected to represent you, and you both privately, call, email, whatever, you publicly. You tag them, you find them, and you ask them to explain to you in granular detail what they have done to do 2 things. What have you done? You want to answer these questions. You can write them down if you want. What have you done to stand up to the liberal establishment in your government? And then number 2, ask them to tell you how they have fought or actually achieved shrinking government in any way. Because the thing I remind audiences all over the state and all over the country, we've gone so far away, even as the Republican Party in too many ways, from our first principles. The first principles of liberty, and people have forgotten, elected officials have forgotten, or maybe most of them never knew or didn't care, the basics. As government grows, liberty necessarily shrinks. Because for government to do anything, even something that we would all agree is a good thing, an actual role of government can never do something good until and unless it first does something bad, which is commit theft. Because how many of you know that taxation is theft? Period. Taxation is theft. So there you go. So remember, anytime you hear some politician saying government should, or you stop them, your default position should be no. I'm one of those people, when people come to my office, hey, Representative Harrison, should government do it? I'm like, let me stop you there. The answer is probably no. Okay, government probably shouldn't do that thing, all right? So demand accountability from the people who represent you. Tag them publicly. Demand that they answer publicly. Remind them taxation is theft. And I'll close with this one sentence. Let me know if you guys agree with me, because it's what I'm fighting for. I believe it's what you're fighting for. I just want to check, because here's what I'm fighting for. If I could put everything I'm doing in one sentence, I think it would be this. Guys, I just want government to be as irrelevant to our lives as possible so we can be as free as God meant for us to be. Do you agree with that here at YALCON? Just want to make sure. All right, there you go.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, representatives. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
We're out of time here, so we're not going to be able to take many questions, but I think these guys are going to be hanging out. But let's give them another round of applause as these guys exit the stage here.
And Aaron Baltich, great guys, great guys. Thank you so much. So, those are some pretty solid politicians, I gotta say. Defenders of liberty. And speaking of defending liberty, especially in the state of Ohio, we had a panel earlier today called The Fight for the Soul of Ohio. We are in the great city of Cincinnati right now, and the person introducing our next speaker is the future of the next generation of the fight for freedom in Ohio. He is a student at Ohio State University, and this past semester he gathered over 1,000 signatures to protect the right to student self-defense on a college campus, and went to the Capitol to advocate directly to those in power to restore our freedom now. Please welcome to the stage, A.J. Alexander. Great stuff, man. Yeah.
How are we enjoying Ohio right now? Yeah. I.O. Yeah, we got a few of those in there. All right. All right, so our next speaker, this man was an Army veteran. He was in the 3rd Division and stationed in Germany when the Berlin Wall was brought down. So he saw freedom firsthand. After the Army, he returned home, got his MBA from the University of Notre Dame. We beat them for, a few years in a row, but, yeah. But anyway, he got his MBA, he returned to Ohio and operated businesses in Ohio for 15 years and decided in 2016 to return to the service in the U.S. House of Representatives. He has been fighting for Ohio and he's been fighting for the United States as a great congressman. And he recently was one of 4 Republicans to vote for the War Powers Resolution to end the war in Iran. Please welcome to the stage one of Ohio's finest, Congressman Warren Davidson.
Thanks, y'all. It's an honor to be able to join you guys tonight. What an awesome crowd for a beautiful summer evening. So thanks for coming in tonight. People that have followed me for a while will hear the saying that my mission, my reason for Congress is I want to restore a government small enough to fit within the Constitution. In my view, we could afford a government that size and no bigger. We could actually balance the budget. We could actually restore balance. We could have, right now we're suffering from a fatal overdose of government, right? We're getting far more government than really we need and certainly more than we're willing to pay for by a lot, which is breaking lots of things. I'll break this down a lot of times, so obviously it's not going well. Government's growing like it's some kind of invasive, like a cancer. It's spreading everywhere. We have one party that knows to say that they want a smaller, more accountable government, but we don't ever get that. Whether you have Republican majorities or Democrat majorities, government grows, at least the spending grows. Now, we'll give credit where credit's due. The Trump administration has shrunk the headcount by over 300,000 people. The spending, not so good, but the headcount has gone down, and that's a good sign. But I'll say, look, let's look at maybe 5 things that if we did these, I think we could help restore a government small enough to fit within the Constitution. More freedom, who's opposed to that? Less government, well, lots of people are opposed to that. That's the fight. Even within the Republican Party, a lot of the party and all the Democrats think that the solution to everything is more government. Now, the Republicans might want to do different things with the more government than the Democrats, but they've all sort of united to say that the real threat are people like me that want less government, that want, a smaller, more accountable government. And that's where you continually see kind of the small government people marginalized, even within, sadly, often the GOP. I think we have sound money. If we don't have sound money, you can't defend freedom. And a lot of what we're dealing with on affordability today is really just misplaced understanding of the money. If you fix the money, you truly can help fix the world. We got to have a secure border. Some people don't believe in borders. I'm a guy that believes in borders. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. We got to have strong families. And I think that's one of the real distinctions. We created a country and a culture that stands for something. So, when I think about maybe the most basic things, more freedom and less government, maybe one of the most basic libertarian mantras is, that don't hurt people and don't take their stuff. And that alone sounds adequate until you really think about it. Because if you tolerate those who do hurt people and do take other stuff, you really have anarchy. You say, well, that's not for me. But okay, my neighbor, just killed somebody. Well, what are you going to do about it? Well, ever since Cain killed Abel, humans have had a problem living by the real basic mantra, don't hurt people, don't take their stuff, right? So how did we resolve it? Well, the first thing was justice. You've got to have an honest judge that will rightly say who's right and who's wrong and what are we going to do about it. And that's where I'll say, this is the difference between anarchy. Justice is the basic measure of a civilization. If you don't have justice, you don't really have the foundations to build a civil society. So civil liberties, people, what is that? You don't even have the idea of justice. You're living in anarchy. So I think that's one of the things that I really feel that hopefully the whole liberty movement embraces. But you can overdose on that, right? So what's the right balance when you think about it? You think about that to the extent of a border. We fought, we just celebrated America 250. I mean, America is so awesome that we celebrate our birthday when our founding fathers declared their independence, not when they won it, right? Think about that. They declared their independence. They said they pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor to achieve it, and they meant it. It wasn't a hollow slogan or an empty promise. They delivered on it, and many of them did pay with their lives, their fortune, and their sacred honor. Their family members paid a high price as well, but they won freedom for their country. And in the wake of winning that, they spent years hashing out, well, what sort of government are we going to have? We had Articles of Confederation, and they came together at a constitutional convention. When they came out of it, Ben Franklin said that he was asked famously, what have you wrought, sir? What kind of government did you guys create? He said, a republic, if you can keep it. He didn't say an empire. He didn't say a kingdom. He didn't say a democracy. He said a republic. And the real difference, look, a democracy is really just mob rule. I mean, it's the same thing as having a dictator. It's just a mob that votes instead of, one person. They can impose their will. One extra vote, and they can do whatever they want to you. A republic says it perfects the Declaration. And look, I think while I say that we need a government small enough to fit within the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence is far more important than the Constitution. The Constitution was just a means of securing what our founding fathers recognized. They said that we were endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Right? Before that, people were out there saying, well, the king or the government is the giver of your rights. You can do what I tell you you can do. Well, what kind of way is that to live? Except that's the way most people lived for a lot of history, world history. They lived like that. We didn't have good governments. Good governments defend freedom, but if you look through history, those governments have been rare. So you had a really healthy debate between the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists. If you hadn't read both of the papers, worth reading for young Americans for liberty, good reading for students. Patrick Henry was one of the guys. He said famously, give me liberty or give me death. He was with the Anti-Federalists, and he felt like the Constitution was just too much government. And might have been vindicated with the way things have turned out so far, right? So the question is, how do you fit it back in? It goes back to the base justice. You don't tolerate those who do hurt people and take their stuff. And when you're administering a fatal overdose of government, like Fauci, you're yeah, Fauci for prison. I'm for that. When you're administering a fatal overdose of government, you're hurting people. When you refuse to tax people at the honest rate, which is what it costs to balance the budget, and you spend more money than you have, it's just a dishonest tax. I mean, inflation is really the most dishonest tax because you lack the moral courage to call it what it is. If we would have told you that we're going to tax your groceries and everything else to the point where $5 footlongs are now $12, everyone would have got fired, right? No one could win campaigning on that, but that's what our government has delivered in 6 years. That's what happened when we broke the money. So our founding fathers said that we're going to do that for our country, not for the whole world. And look, I want the rest of the world to live in peace and prosperity, and I hope they embrace the first principles, which is that at the most basic level, the government didn't give you your rights. You were a free person. Your neighbor was a free person. I think about the right to transact. I wish that was in the Bill of Rights. I'm going to be working to make sure that we add it to our Constitution. Yeah, thank you for that. Because you think about it, if back before we had formal money, if you were out catching fish and your neighbor was gathering fruit and you get to the shore and you all want to make a little bit of a trade, but your neighbor decided they were going to poke their nose in and say, what are you guys doing over there? Well, it's really none of your business. You know, we're working on a little deal over here. Well, the government wants to be in the middle of every single transaction, right? And I think that's where we talk about the future of money being the future. They're trying to create a central bank digital currency with digital ID that gives the government to filter. They call it programmable money. They boast of this as if it's a popular thing. It really is. It's communist money for the digital age. That's why China's leading the way on it. I went to, England, and the Bank of England's working on it. I went to Brussels, and the European Central Bank is working on it. I went to Basel, Switzerland, and the Bank of International Settlement, which is the central bank for the central bankers. They're working on it. And they all recognize no one really wants it, but yet they're working on it. They've got the perfect solution for it. And when you tell people it really is the Great Reset, they say, oh, that's a conspiracy theory. And like, no, you can go out to the World Economic Forum's website and they will tell you what the Great Reset is. They're working on it. I've met with the central bankers that are developing it. You say, well, that's what they're doing, but is our country doing that? Yes, they are. Absolutely they are. And so So we don't yet have the votes to even audit the Fed, so that's the challenge, right? That's the challenge. But look, the good news is there are people that are fighting the fight, and we are trying to ban central bank digital currency. And we did get a temporary ban. The bad news is that a temporary ban is like a go-live date. It's like telling the Empire in Star Wars, you can go ahead and build the Death Star, just don't use it. Once you get it, they're going to use it, right? And this is the creepiest surveillance tool known to man. And that's why I say the future. If you can control your future to the extent that you have financial privacy, you can have a little bit. But go back to the founding and the founding fathers that are out there having this debate about what kind of government are we going to have. They could not get the votes to get the 13 colonies to embrace the Constitution until they established a Bill of Rights. Now, the Bill of Rights, as you all know, but many of our countrymen do not, did not give us rights. It limited the government's ability to infringe our rights. The right to free speech predates the government. The free press is essential to defending freedom. Freedom of religion, you think about that. 9 of the 13 colonies had religious tests for public office. The reason that Rhode Island was founded is because Roger Williams couldn't be a Baptist in Massachusetts. The Puritans were putting him in jail for preaching unofficial sermons. And so he went down to Rhode Island and set up a separate colony where you had religious freedom. Maryland was the only Catholic colony. Many of the other colonies, basically, you couldn't be Catholic or you had a problem. Quakers were pacifists, so they didn't really catch on too well in America in a frontier place. But when the federal government was being formed under the Constitution, they basically had to say we got to have no religious tests for office, because they would have had to have a feud amongst themselves as to where they were going to land. That didn't mean that you were a pure secular country. We clearly weren't. The culture that our founding fathers built was distinctly Christian. But they were careful about what they were building. Like I said, they built a republic, not an empire. And when you read the Federalist Papers, and I'll mention it because I was specifically asked to mention about the Iran War, as was introduced in here, they talked about who has what power. And in Federalist 51, Hamilton and Madison are writing under pseudonyms. And why were they writing under pseudonyms? Because free speech sometimes can be dangerous, right? And maybe the best illustration is during the Soviet era, when Stalin had left, Khrushchev took over. Stalin was a pretty brutal dictator. He killed lots of people in opposition. And Khrushchev was basically outing that and saying, Stalin was pretty brutal. I'm not really going to try to govern that way. And someone from a crowd, maybe like this one, yelled out, "Why didn't you say anything then?" And, he was now the heir to that brutal dictatorship. And so he bellowed. He goes, "Who said that? I demand to know who said it." And everybody sitting around, the person that had said it got real quiet. No one said anything. Why? Because they knew that if you knew who said it, well, it could be really costly for that person. So they didn't say it. That's why privacy is integral. You can't defend freedom without privacy. And our founding fathers protected that with the Fourth Amendment. And that's probably the most infringed right. You know, the First Amendment, protects religion, speech, press, the right to assemble, the right to redress grievances. Second Amendment protects the right to keep and bear arms, not keep and store them. Keep and bear arms. The Third Amendment, to me, is often neglected. It says that you can't be compelled to quarter troops. Well, back in the day, that meant physical soldiers. But in the modern era, you're quartering troops right here in this. You can't even have good cryptography or you risk going to jail. So this is far more government than our Constitution had. And that's why the Declaration is so much more important than the Constitution. The Constitution's being abused and the Declaration provided the remedy, right? Eventually, you have to say, enough of this. You're not following it. You didn't keep your word. We wanted to trust you and let you keep your word. We wanted to just leave it at don't hurt people and don't take their stuff. But once people don't, you either live with anarchy or the people that will hurt people and will take their stuff wind up with the power. You know, there's a reason why if you send aid into some place where there are starving people and you feel sad for the starving people in, say, Gaza, well, why doesn't that work? Well, because the people with the guns always wind up with the stuff, right? They wind up with the food. So Hamas wound up with the food aid that we might have meant for the regular people of Gaza. Back in the day when you sent food to Ethiopia or Somalia, I was in Ranger Regiment back not long after Somalia. Some of the people that fought in Somalia, if you watch Black Hawk Down or read about it, that was the fight in Mogadishu, Somalia. A guy named Aidid took all the aid. We said, we want to help the starving people in Somalia. And the warlords wound up with the stuff. I mean, in a way, isn't that what happens in every country, even ours? The people with the power and the guns wind up with the stuff. So the question is, what are we going to do about it? And my answer is, don't tolerate those people that hurt and take stuff. And they're taking our country. Now, let's be clear. This is not a call for the fourth box. You know, Frederick Douglass said that our freedom, he's a freed slave during the Civil War era, and he said our freedoms rest in 4 boxes. First is the soapbox, that's free speech. Second is the jury box, that's justice. Third is the ballot box, that's elections. But if they all fail, fourth is the cartridge box. That's what our founding fathers had to resort to. I pray to God we don't have to resort to that in our own country, right? So we have to make this system work. And the way we're going to make it work is groups like y'all. Is you go out, look, a lot of your classmates know you're more political than average, and they might ask your opinion about something. If they do decide to vote ever, they might ask you on Sunday night before the election, who should I vote for, or what's this issue even about, right? You can't wait for that passively. You've got to be the active people. And I will say, look, as a guy who's been fighting hard to get some of these things done, that honestly we're not winning a lot of the fights that we're in for a smaller government. Sometimes I vote no, even when it's popular within my own party to vote yes. Or sometimes I vote yes when it's popular within my party to vote no. And I think that's the thing. If you're guided by something other than, founding principles, it's easy to go wherever the wind blows. If you're guided by a compass that points north, then you know how to find your direction. And I think true north for our country and our nation is represented in our founding document, our Declaration of Independence. I think the Constitution can protect it, but I'm positive it's not doing it. What we have today is either because of or in spite of our Constitution. So I do think we can still use the soapbox. I do think we can still use the jury box. in many jurisdictions, not all of them. And in those jurisdictions where you can't get a just verdict, the remedy has to be the election box. Because God forbid you have to resort to the cartridge box. Now let's talk about, war powers. They had the debate in Federalist 69 and they laid it out. And they said, who should be able to take the country to war? We've seen countries fail because of the king being able to send the country to war. There are no free wars. You bankrupt the country. Bankrupt countries are hard to defend, right? So they decided that the whole thing, go back to Federalist 51, Hamilton Madison writing, they said in that if all men were angels, we would need no government. We know that all men aren't angels. Even with good intentions, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts. The one ring to rule them all is tempting, and the right answer is to destroy it. All right. So the question becomes, how do we do that? And I think our Constitution is adequate to the challenge, but we have too many people that don't want to follow the oath. The oath is to the Constitution. The oath is not to a party. The oath is not to a president. Parliamentary systems were conceived of when our founding fathers created the separation of powers that reflect our republic. I think they would have been stunned to see how things have devolved. But in their own lifetime, they cautioned about political parties, but then they embraced them very early into the republic. Right? By the second presidency, John Adams and Jefferson were working in different parties. And so you look at the Constitution, they said wars of choice have to be declared. And I tell you, as an Army guy, you want that because you want our nation to go to war. You don't want something on low simmer where you have a caste system, where you have a warrior caste and the civil society isn't engaged in it. When the country is united in purpose, the country wins decisive wars. But when it can be turned down to a low simmer, as many people have cautioned, that is a war that's meant to be waged, not won. And that is bankrupting our country, not just financially, but morally. The last thing I'll say, because I was asked to address it, is the war powers vote. Because our Constitution didn't measure up. In World War II, we were united and we declared war. That's the last time our country declared war. In the Korean War, which was 1950 to 1953, they never declared it. Ohio Senator Taft always wanted to force a vote and never successfully did. What they did instead was passively cut checks. And I will tell you, probably then as today, the highest concentration of passive-aggressive behavior in the United States is in Washington, D.C. And passive-aggressive where, I will take the passive route of just cutting the checks versus the assertive route of making a decision and voting for or against the war. So they didn't do that in the Korean War. In the Vietnam War, they had a Gulf of Tonkin resolution that was stretched and tortured to death to get a decade-plus long war in Vietnam. And as that was going on and on and on, in 1973, they passed the War Powers Act because they wanted a privileged resolution where the House of Representatives and the Senate could put pressure on the presidency to take action. And the War Powers Act says three things. It says, if there's a declaration of war, we can use force. There hasn't been since 1942. If there's a authorization for combat, like there was after 9/11, then you can go to war. 3 days after 9/11, they called the votes because they had the votes. When they don't have the votes, they tend to not call the votes, right? So the third way is to repel an imminent attack. Now, Tom Cotton, senator from Arkansas, said that there's been an imminent threat from Iran for 47 years. I don't think that sounds like you agree with. It sounds like you guys agree with me that is not what the word imminent means. So the word imminent would mean, faster than you can convene Congress. This is actions necessary. And of course, you have a constitutional duty as the president to defend the country. So, okay, we get it. You can just inform us. And then because any of those things could happen, then Congress can drop a resolution and have a privileged vote. It doesn't say the president can do whatever he wants for 60 or 90 days. It says that the president, having had an imminent attack, which we didn't have an imminent attack on the United States, then for up to 60 days, the president could take action. But if in the absence of an authorization, then before the 90th day, you have to disengage from combat, right? So that's what the vote was on in March. That's what the vote was in June. That was what the vote was recently, and I voted yes on those because it's a clear yes to the actual language of the War Powers Act, and it's clear yes on the language of the Constitution. But I'll say it's trendy to follow the politics rather than the language. And I will say, look, you can't restore a government small enough to fit within the Constitution if in your very actions you undermine the Constitution. I think that's the real question. If we're going to be governed by a Constitution, we have to. And if we refuse to be, then I think we need another constitutional convention, as the Declaration laid out. So, you guys have been a great audience. It's an honor to be able to join you tonight. Thanks for defending freedom. I encourage everyone in these trying times, look, ground you will not defend, you can't hold. In a general election, you might not be inspired by every candidate you get a vote for, but go vote Republican. Go vote for the best candidate for each office, and hold the ground that we've fought to claim. That's what primaries are about, to shape the system, right? And, you know, there are third parties out there. I don't want to say there's no principled third party, but we're a long ways away from one of those winning. The GOP is a coalition, as is the Democrats. We don't have actual communists in ours. We probably have about everybody else. But the question is, can you hold the ground and live to fight another day? So I encourage you to encourage everyone you can to make sure that the first three boxes work. And so keep calm and defend freedom. God bless y'all.
We're rocking the summer.
So, it is time for one of my favorite parts of every YALCON. Almost Sigs Inside, Peck. It's time for the group photo! So, I am many things. However, I'm not a professional photography guy. Fortunately, we have the guy who, if you go to Wikipedia page for almost any politician and click into who gave the photo credit, including Ron Paul, you'll see photo credit Gage Skidmore. And tonight, our group photo will be taken by Gage Skidmore in the back. So here's what we're going to do. I got another great guy with us today. He's also going to get some video of us. Che is going to come up here and tell you exactly what to do for the optimal group photo. Give it up for Che, everybody.
That's the most applause I've gotten in 6 years of this career that I've been cosplaying. Look, we have a bunch of leaders here, so I need all of you guys who are leaders to lead the rest of you guys to here. And I need all of you guys, the leaders in that crew, to lead all of your people to here. That's the common thing. We got to get all of you guys together into the middle, and that means now. I'm like kind of prompting that to happen now. So let's get all of you guys, no, not to stage, no, to the center of this area, because here's what's going to happen. You guys are looking at me right now, and when you guys get to the middle, I need you to turn that way, because the legendary Gage Skidmore is over there. He's in the back. Thank you, guys. Get together. Let's get all of you guys to the middle. Come on, keeping over. If you're worried about how you look, don't. Because if you ask me, I'm going to say you look great, and I'm not going to show you the photo. So keep on going over. Keep it going, all the way in. If you've got space next to you, you're doing it wrong. If you've got space next to you, you are doing it wrong. Don't jump on the stage. Stay on the ground. If you've got space next to you, you're doing it wrong. Get nice and tight together, everybody. Keep going. On that side? All right, so here's how we're going to do this. While y'all can't see me over here, hello, that's me. I need all of you guys to go a little further that way. And for the people that aren't directly in front of me, I need all of you guys to go further that way. Further that way. There's an arrow up on the wall. It's also my hand over here. I was kidding completely. That's me. I need all of you guys to go further that way. Keep going further, keep going further, keep going further, over. Be helpful if maybe, hey, Gage, you can make do? Good with that? Game on, okay. Y'all crushed that. That's awesome. Although I do see some space, neighbor space next to some people, so keep squeezing in, keep squeezing in. Let's do this thing. All right. How y'all feeling? Y'all feeling good? Game on. Man, that is the volume we all wanted. Here we go. Gage, how are you feeling? He's great, guys. He's fantastic. Look, he's ready to take a photo, and you guys got to look amazing on 3. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, we could do that. I don't know exactly. Big smiles, big smiles. All right. Mr. Skidmore, you got what you needed? All right. Now, here's the thing. This isn't just a photo op. For you guys who have been here before, this is your chance to get rowdy. Let's have some fun. Let's do Massey, 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 Massey. All right, all right, all right, all right. All right, here we go. Let's try a new one. Let's try another one. No more wars. No more wars. No more wars. I love you all. Here we go. YAL. 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 All right, you all. I absolutely love you guys. Let's have a banger night, you guys. It's still going. All right, good to go, good to go, good to go. All right. We are good to go, ladies and gentlemen. Go on back to your seats and enjoy the rest of your evening. Appreciate you, bro. Nice.
Yep.
Hey,
Oh my God. Am I live? Great. All right, please take your seats and we'll get right back to the programming very shortly, very shortly. Also, if we can get the house lights down, that'd be great. Oh, amazing. It's good, good. The sound of darkness. I love it. I love it. All right, please take your seats. Please take your seats. Now, I think, as a palate cleanser, this is a perfect time to turn your attention to the screen.
Some traditional folks may not be interested in more than a one-night stand with a horny chatbot. They may want a deeper relationship, but they may never happen because an Ohio lawmaker wants to ban marriage between humans and AI chatbots. That headline again, Ohio lawmaker's wife left him for an AI chatbot. Whoa! Craig Schneiderman! Oh, Craig! Schneiderman. Fun fact. This piece of legislation comes from Ohio Representative Thaddeus Claggett. No wonder he's against technology. His name is 200 years old. You know his campaign slogan, Thaddeus Claggett, gall darn prairie dog stole my hat again. Yvonne, can we actually see a picture of Thaddeus Claggett? That does not look right. Can we run that through AI? Much better.
Please welcome to the stage Ohio State Representative Thaddeus Claggett.
It's great to be with you this evening. We don't agree with that much of anything that man says, but I enjoyed the fun that he was trying to have, so we'll have a little fun with what he was trying to do. I want to talk to you about AI tonight. I spent a huge amount of time with that in my chairmanship of the Ohio Technology Committee. It is the issue of the time, and I'm going to try to demonstrate that to you. This is a great crowd to do that because you're the up-and-coming thinkers of our age. And so I want to lay out for you why this is important and what we need to think about. I'm not going to give you answers tonight, but I'm going to certainly give you something to think about and help us as we try to navigate the biggest thing that humanity has ever faced. All right, but let's have a little fun first because I want to tell you a little family history story that's going to tie into AI at the end here. Okay, so he mentioned there in the clip that the name is 200 years old. Actually, he had no idea. He don't know me from Adam. But the name is way older than that. And so I want to talk about how we got started here as a family. My family came from England, middle 1600s. Sir Edward Claggett is the colonel in the army there that is in charge of the defense of London. He's imprisoned by King Charles I. He's out of there, and he takes this, the Claggett coat of arms, into battle and helps defend the city of London. 14 miles outside of that is where he lives, and it's a huge honor. And he is rewarded by King Charles II with 16,000 acres in the New World of Maryland. And so he sends his son to the New World, and Samuel Claggett then turns the Claggett coat of arms into the state seal of the state of Maryland. So that's a little bit of history of how my family got started and how it came to America. But Samuel, had a son named Thomas Claggett, and he becomes the first ordained minister on American soil. He is the one that has founded the United States National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. He built the land there. When the Revolutionary War was going on, he held church services on that very land that he had picked out with General Washington as they surveyed the city of D.C. Kind of cool stuff. He became the chaplain of the United States Senate in 1800 when they moved into the new building. The fun thing about all that is it shaped the religious life of America. Extremely important stuff. And when you throw your relative in jail because of religious reasons, Thomas Claggett doesn't forget that. And when the founders put that stuff together, there's reasons why we have certain things in our Constitution that are protected. When you go back to your founders and find out what motivated them, it's stuff like this. So Thomas is doing his work there as a chaplain and as a pastor in early America. 1812 comes along and we have another war with the British. And when that happens, we have this event. Fort McHenry is being fired upon. You remember the story. You have a flag that's flying above Fort McHenry, which incidentally was put together in the Claggett Brewery there in Maryland. It comes out of there. It's the flag that flies above Fort McHenry. And remember the story in regard to how you're supposed to surrender when the British are bombarding. All you have to do is take down the flag. And the man who dies defending that flag right here on the rampart is Lieutenant Levi Claggett. The story is being written right over here in the bay by Francis Scott Key. You know that because you know that he wrote the national anthem ordaining that event. This rampart is known as the Claggett Rampart to this day. You can go there and watch it, watch how it all came about. That's family history. That's United States history. That gets us somewhere. It's important because as we see as a nation these events that unfold in front of us, there is an answering of the call to threat. And that is what we're dealing with tonight. The threat that the representative was talking about in regard to the national debt and all these other things that are happening as members of Congress wrestle through small government and large government and so forth. Our debt is a problem for sure. But I want to submit to you that the real problem that we have today that is going to magnify how that stuff is brought forward is artificial intelligence. It's not today. Today's stuff is almost as amazing as it is. It's useful. The president says we have to win that war. I tend to agree with him. You do not want AI in the hands of your enemy and it is producing stuff on your life that you don't want. So the United States Constitution has the best chance with lawmakers here of producing a system that can monitor that. So when we respond as a family, as a nation, as up to this current age, as we respond to threats, we need to consider carefully that this is not just a tool revolution. Yes, it is a tool. But when superintelligence is fully here, you're playing with a beast that no humanity has ever faced with. The atomic bomb was a massive effort. And it was important that the United States win that to get through World War II. Glad they did. But AI, when it's fully vetted and it's functioning the way it's going to, is going to be a huge beast, way beyond anything that has ever been contemplated in humanity's history. Because it's agentic. The whole nature of it is to take something that is being fed into us, but we are training it right now. In fact, I had a conversation just yesterday with a professor from George Washington University. He is admitting, he's a liberal, he's admitting we know that the algorithm is being shaped by liberal ideas. Same thing that happened when Twitter became X. We found out. We knew it, but there it was. This is what's happening right in front of you right now. And this is the moment in time for you to join the battle as an American. We have to answer the call. What is the right answer? That's tough. That is really tough. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But I hope you catch the vision that as you have your ability to think through these problems. I'm a civil engineer in my real world, and I like to think about technology and lawmaking as a tube, a pipe, and through that pipe runs a fluid. And what the great job of a lawmaker is to set the weir at the exact right spot so that it tilts the behavior of a society in the right direction, a constitutional direction. Well, that is what's really, really hard to do. Because on one hand, so for instance, early in my political career, I thought, we'll just watermark every pixel on the internet. That's not a good idea, because we know what powerful people will do to people who are liberty-minded. So you probably don't want to do that. So we are caught in between. We want to establish a system whereby maximizing personal liberties, and yet at the same time, you have to control this beast. And that's what it is. So, is it useful? Absolutely. Should Americans have it? Absolutely. But how do we deal with it? Again, I'm not going to give you answers. I'm not sure we have the answers just yet. But I want you to be fully engaged in the fact that we have 8 billion people on this planet. At the end of 2026, there will be 45 billion bots just in the world alone. And only 10% of those are controlled by any system that controls what goes into them and what comes out of them. The problem, ladies and gentlemen, is the United States Constitution is held by courts. And if the courts in America are powerless to defend your rights under the Constitution, then you have no rights. And the problem is, as the system moves towards superintelligence, your ability to go in and affect that change diminishes rapidly. So this is the moment before we get there. And that, I don't know how long that clock is, but it's not long. It's going to happen. All right, so what do we do about that? Let's think about that. If due process is hollowed out, because if a bot acting autonomously does something that it should not do, well then you have no recourse. If bias gets industrialized, not eliminated, I just told you that the bot that is being trained right now is doing things in a very liberal way. That's a problem. We need to think about that. Surveillance infrastructure. This is the camera issues. This is like what's going on in China right now, okay? The surveillance issue. You don't want to live in a society that does that. How are we going to deal with that? Autonomy itself, not just privacy. The thing is the risk. We got to be careful we don't allow this machine to do something that we cannot challenge in court. The accountability gap creates a practical rights vacuum. If you don't have any ability to change this thing after it does what it's going to do, because remember, the bot is going to be acting on its own. And that's what the problem is. 8 billion people are at risk for complete universal takeover. It's not one bomb in Hiroshima. The consent framework weren't built for automated reuse of data. You've signed a ton of these, even if you're young. Yeah, I'll buy this credit card and get the 12 sheets and I'll sign down here. This system is going to take that consent and use it in way many ways that you didn't intend for. And the problem is, if that happens, then you have no ability to recourse, and the judge is powerless to redress that regress because the system has got it, and there is no human to prosecute. That's the problem. The unresolved policy question is where the oversight should scale with the impact, okay? Again, I'm not trying to give you answers tonight. I want to think with you. Come see me if you want to help, okay? This is the challenge. How do we then as a society take on this task of regulating, controlling, being ethical? Ethics is probably the greatest subject matter of all time right now. Okay? Ethics are extremely important. Who's going to stand in that gap? All right, so how are we going to do that together as a society? Okay? Something to think about. I want you to think about that next time you're dealing with your AI. This is the moment of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Is this thing on? This thing's on. Thank you, Representative Claggett. Now, please welcome back to the stage, continuing the thread on AI a bit, one, the only Spy Cohen.
O-H. O-H. Y-A. I'm sorry, I set you up for that. I apologize. I am not going to continue on with the AI threat, but that is pretty funny. I appreciate you guys being here. I'm actually up here because, and most of you probably know this, but for those who don't know, I'm going to let you know. The two things that I love the most are the history of the founding of our country and rap beef, right? As I know it is for all of you. And thankfully, Emergent Order Foundation has made a video that satisfies both of those passions of mine with the video that I'm introducing right now. These are the folks who are behind the incredible Keynes versus Hayek rap battle video. They did the Marx versus Mises rap battle video, and now we're about to watch the Jefferson versus Hamilton rap battle video. Now, I'm actually looking forward to the Burr versus Hamilton rap battle video, but I'm sure they're working on that. But without any further ado, here is Emergent Order Foundation's Jefferson versus Hamilton rap battle video.
Let's go! Yeah, I'm the founder who built this nation's foundation. From the ashes of war, a fiscal sensation. You say states' rights, I say contradiction. 13 sovereigns, permanent friction. I was there when the articles fell apart. No taxes, army, or national heart. Congress couldn't pay the men who bled, hence the new charter, a union instead. Welcome Alexander to the people's retort. You love central power, move back to the core. I hold these truths, self-evident too. Concentrated power corrupts, that means you. You talk unions, but I heard your speech. A president for life, you overreach. A monarch disguised an elected king. The Constitution's a cage, not a royal ring. And a republic this size needs energy to thrive. Not a loose confederation, barely alive. United we stand, not just a phrase. It's a bank amid debts that we raise. You want government weak? Remember Shays. Farmers revolt, whole nation ablaze. When states couldn't keep any peace. We need federal force to police. Independence pen with my own hand. Life and liberty you don't understand. Government close, keep the people free. Virginia knows Virginia, not your treasury. Your energetic state, here's what I see. Standing armies, taxes and tyranny. States are not subjects, but partners in kind. A compact of equals, or have you gone blind? You fund the debts, you fund speculation. Wall Street wolves in coordination. Southern farmers pay the cost of your scheme. Northern bankers living the dream. The yeoman farmer is freedom's foundation, not your mercantile bank or fed nation. Keep your corruption and financial crown. States will stand when your system falls down. I'll fund the debts, assume what states owe. Build public credit, the economy grows. One nation, market, financial soul. Central government makes the republic whole. One nation or many, where does power belong? A centralized order, or states that are strong. Too much at the top and liberty bends. Too weak at the center and the union ends. One nation, two visions. America's heart, the battle we fought from the start. Yeah. You fear a strong union? I fear the reverse. A weak confederation is liberty's hearse. How do small republics survive foreign threats? Without a strong center, the whole nation forgets. Foreign powers will divide us state by state. Virginia against New York, that's our fate. But a national government with power to act can defend the whole union, and that is a fact. Back to the question of power in place. Far government can't see every face. By swampy Potomac, your capital city, will it know what Kentucky needs? What a pity. Massachusetts, Georgia, different breeds. One size fits all breeds tyranny. Let states experiment, locals decide. Laboratories of freedom, far and wide. You say closest government is government best. Tell that to debtors in the Massachusetts West. When creditors crush them and states turn away, a stronger union could save the day. I don't want a king, I want administration, an executive who can act for the nation. Not 13 governors pulling their own way, but one union for these United States. You want effective, I want accountable. A responsible president, never reachable. Not some thrown in far marble halls. Bigger the government, the harder the fall. And yes, I fear standing armies, you should too. Professional soldiers answer to who? Not citizen farmers who fight for their home, but central commanders with freedom to roam. You cite foreign threats to justify reach, but emergency powers a tyranny speech. Historical despots said, trust me, relax. Then put people under the axe. Consolidation starts with increments small. A little tax here, then lose it all. The states are the check on federal schemes, the last line of defense for the people's dream. Public credit built us up from the ground. Foreign respect and market so sound. Your pastoral dream, you can't pay the bills. A modern republic needs financial skills. Let's talk about legacy. What will survive? My treasury system keeps this nation alive. The credit I built, let the country expand from 13 states to sea and sand. Your compact, the states, where does it go? Nullification, secession, a fatal blow. When South Carolina tried their own way, they cited your logic from Kentucky. Survival logic will never end. The crisis today, tyranny's trend. Trust me now, liberty's coming, hold tight. Says every dictator before the night. I'm not for disunion, don't twist what I say. I signed independence, I'm here to stay. But union means balance, not domination. The states deserve equal consideration. I'm not naive about power's temptation. That's why we have courts and representation. But a government too weak to act when it must isn't virtue, it's breaking the trust. The people elected a national Congress, not ambassadors under duress. We the people, not we the states. Ordained this republic, sealed our fate. You fear the center? Fine, stay on guard. But a union that can't act will fall hard. Weak leads get conquered, divided in two. History's lesson, I'm giving it to you. A republic is self-governance, not ruled from above with arrogance. Let Congress convene, let the capital debate. But remember the people in every state. My vision's not weakness, but distributed power. More hands keep the tyrants from tower. When the center stays modest, corruption stays small. Local accountability protects us all. A government must govern, that's not tyranny. That's the price we pay for security. I take the risk of power that's strong over weakness that kills us before very long. Where does power belong? A centralized order or states that are strong? Too much at the top and liberty bends. Too weak at the center and the union ends. One nation, two visions. America's heart, the battle we fought from the start.
Hey chat, Alexander Hamilton here to remind you to like and subscribe. And Thomas Jefferson is here too. But he lost.
I did not lose, and these fine viewers will see over the next several weeks that I will continue to prevail when we move on to the topic of constructionism. Can you two find somewhere else to film these?
Hi. Hello. Okay, I hear you guys. No, thank you. For any of you who did like the video and would like to do a screening of it, you can scan the QR code here and you can win prizes depending on the attendees that you get to your campus. I'm sorry that most of you did not like the AI. I will say this, that video would have been incredibly difficult and expensive to make without it, and this is gonna allow us to get you guys a lot more content. You guys can teach your colleagues in your YAL chapters about Hamilton and Jefferson and history, and you can host these screenings, and you can do these amazing things, and we can get you more content to do this with now thanks to this technology. That's my 2 cents on that. I'm also going to tell you guys that we're hiring, and we're doing other projects besides this. So if it wasn't your cup of tea, you can come work on our live action content. You can work on our podcast offerings. We're looking for associate producers, production assistants, assistant editors, and a few other positions. So we've got a booth out in the exhibit hall that has all of our job descriptions. And for those of you who did enjoy the video, I appreciate it. For those of you who did not, stay tuned. Subscribe to the channel. You might like the next one. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. Jesse ran a really great YAL chapter back in the day in the state of Ohio. So, appreciate what you do, appreciate what Emergent Order does. Now, our next speaker is going to be introduced by someone who has really stepped up this past year, not in Ohio, but in a very close neighboring state of Kentucky. Who we got from Kentucky in the room? Yes. Some great people have come from Kentucky. Of course, Thomas Massey, Savannah Maddox, Rand Paul, and now our next introducer. This leader started over a dozen new chapters in just this semester alone, and she's got way more where that is coming from. Please welcome to the stage one of the top Young Americans for Liberty activists, Sarah Sloan.
How y'all doing tonight? It's been great, right? Great. Well, it's about to get better, especially with this next speaker. He is Topher Field. He's an Australian filmmaker and a political commentator who has spent over 15 years documenting the fight for liberty around the world. He directed Battleground Melbourne, an award-winning documentary chronicling the human costs of Victoria's COVID lockdowns and Give Me Liberty, and authored the book Good People Break Bad Laws. He was arrested by Australian police for his coverage of lockdown protests, and he kept filming anyway. So please give him a warm welcome, the filmmaker and liberty activist, Topher Field.
Yes, I am from Australia. But let me say happy birthday, happy 250th birthday to the United States of America. The land of the free. The land of the free because of the brave. Quick question, I'm not trying to start nothing. But if America continues going the way that it's been going over the last couple of 100 years, raise your hands if you believe that America will still be the land of the free on your 500th birthday. Anybody willing to, okay, like 2 or 3 hands. Some of you are wondering if you're still the land of the free today. And honestly, that's kind of a fair question, because King George III would be jealous of the amount of surveillance, the standing armies, the taxation, the lack of representation that the American government gets away with today. If I may borrow a meme, your own government has become the very thing that your founders swore to destroy. Now, I'm not here to tell you that you're wrong and I have all the answers. I'm here to tell you, America, you're in danger. But you have the answers. Your ancestors already showed you what you must do. I'm not here to tell you that, America, you should be more like Australia or Europe or anywhere else. I'm here to say to you very simply, America, you need to be more like America. But not the modern version. The original one, the one that believed in freedom and inalienable rights, that believed in risking your lives, your fortunes, and your sacred honor, the one that was built by your founders who stood up against the most powerful government of their day for the purpose of giving freedom to you and to your descendants for as long as you can keep it. But that begs an uncomfortable question. How long can you keep it? And honestly, what does that even mean? What does it look like in practice today to keep it? Well, if I may be so bold, let me say that the greatest danger to America's freedom today is that you have too much 1984 and not enough 1776. You have too much government power at every level, and there are not enough limits that are still effective. When I ask, will there be a 500th birthday, what I'm actually asking you in practice is, how do we limit the power of government in practice? Constitutions, bills of rights, separation of power, these are good things, but they are all dead letter and doomed to fail unless they are defended. Defended by who? By we, the people. In practice, the limit of our obedience is the limit of government power. If you truly believe in limited government, and you're Americans, right? You all believe that government should be limited. Well, then I've got news for you. You need to believe that you must have a limit to your obedience. Civil disobedience is not a replacement to political action, it is a force multiplier. Peaceful, non-destructive civil disobedience makes all the other strategies more effective. But it's also the final, essential, non-violent step before actual revolution. And no one should contemplate revolution without first exhausting every non-violent alternative. As President Kennedy said, this is the bad news. Those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable. Civil disobedience is the final step of the peaceful version. That's how you keep it. Civil disobedience. A republic if you can keep it, as Benjamin Franklin warned Elizabeth Willing Powell in 1787. Limiting your obedience is how you keep alive the spirit of 1776, not as a historical reenactment, but as a living part of who you are today. You do it by your willingness to say no and limit your obedience. Now, what right does this Australian have to come to the greatest nation in the world and talk to you about civil disobedience, to talk to you about the spirit of 1776? Well, I lived as a dissident for 18 months as my home city of Melbourne, Australia descended into madness during the COVID panic of 2020 and 21. You're watching a montage of scenes from my documentary Battleground Melbourne, which has won 14 film awards around the world. It tells the story of courageous Australians as we limited our obedience at great cost. We were under lockdowns for over 570 days, and our lockdowns were deeper and longer and more violently enforced than anywhere else on earth outside of China. I spoke out from the start, and because of my public profile and my viral videos opposed to the lockdowns, I was then invited to speak at the very first publicly advertised illegal anti-lockdown protest. Now, I accepted the invitation to speak with some trepidation, because posting videos online is not the same thing as becoming a dissident, a criminal, at a time when the atmosphere was thick with fear. But I said yes, and on the morning of the protest, I advertised it across all of my socials. Then I got in the car, and I began a 1-hour drive, dodging police roadblocks to get to the location. And the whole time, my stomach was churning like a washing machine. All my life, I'd been a good boy. I'm a conservative pastor's son. I'm ex-infantry with an honorable discharge. I have no criminal record, never done drugs, nothing. I'm the most boring person you can imagine. But if I spoke at this illegal protest, if I limited my obedience in this moment of all moments, my life would be forever changed in ways that I could not yet foresee. When I arrived, I looked across and the police were already there getting ready. They'd read my advertising on my social media pages. They were getting ready to do what? Well, none of us knew yet. The scenes you're watching hadn't happened yet. This was right at the very beginning. We didn't yet know about the violence and the tyranny that would follow. All I knew was that in that moment, if I walked across that street and into that park, my life would never be the same. I sat in my car for a lot longer than I would like to admit. We all want to believe that we will be courageous, that we will step up, but we don't know who we are until we get tested. I was afraid to get arrested, definitely. I was afraid of that. But actually, I was terrified as I sat in my car gripping the steering wheel that I was about to discover that I'm a coward. I was tempted to just delete my posts on social media, drive home, and pretend that it never happened. Hardly anyone will know, except that I will know for the rest of my life that I'm a coward. So instead, I pulled out my phone and I started a live stream on Facebook. And once I had about 1,000 people watching, everyone was locked down, so watching my live streams was pretty popular back then. Once I had about 1,000 people, I told them what I was about to do. I literally bullied myself with accountability from strangers on the internet to answer this question: who am I? Well, it worked. And I got out of my car and I marched across that street and I faced the unknown. Now, amazingly, the police left us alone that day. They didn't know what to do either. It was the very start. And so we held a small but successful protest, and this is what I said back in April 2020.
Yet what we're seeing from Daniel Andrews now is bullying and intimidation, an unprecedented power grab. This virus will pass, but the massive debt and the unprecedented power grab that we have seen will affect Victorians and Australians for generations.
Now, I passed my test that day, and thankfully, that day, the police left us all alone, but that did not last for long. As months passed, I continued to speak out and to engage in peaceful but uncompromising protest, even as they began to arrest pastors for opening their churches, rabbis for opening their synagogues. They arrested business owners for opening their doors, and they arrested protesters for protesting. And yes, eventually that included me too. But long before my arrest, police would come to my home regularly to try and intimidate me. And I never knew if they were there to arrest me like they had to Zoe Bueller. You might have seen this in international news, and arrested so many others. But every time they came to my door, I would be polite, but I did not back down.
So do you have a reason for attending this protest?
Yeah, because it's a human rights violation that we're locked in our houses.
Short and to the point. I spoke at many protests over the 18 months of lockdowns, and our numbers grew into the tens of thousands. But as our movement grew, the police violence grew with it. The police began to use Bearcats, armored vehicles. They carried out random shootings with rubber bullets. There were beatings, and if they ever managed to corner any protesters, they would carry out violent arrests. But to be clear, it was not us who was instigating violence, it was the police. But despite the danger of arrest or injury, we did not stop. For 18 months, things escalated until there came a fateful day when we took refuge at the Shrine of Remembrance, our war memorial.
And it wasn't our desire to come back here, but when they started using the anti-terror squad and driving the Bearcat through the streets of Melbourne, labelling people who are simply political opponents of the government, labelling them as terrorists, well, unfortunately, we were left with very little choice. To appeal to our history, to appeal to our ancestors, to appeal to the freedoms that they fought for, that we inherited, and right now we are letting slip away in our generation. And I won't stand for that, neither will all the people here.
We were appealing to our ancestors and to the freedoms that they fought for, just as you must stand today for the freedoms that your founders, your fathers, risked everything for 250 years ago. Do you know what a father is? Not just biologically, not just a dad. A father is someone who is willing to give you everything they have and everything they are in the hope, in the dream that you will become greater than they ever were. That's what a father is. I'm a father. Now, this is a young room, but I'd love a show of hands. To all the men in the room, raise your hands if you want to be a father someday. All right, not a dad, a father. Keep your hands up. A man who looks at your children and is willing to give them everything in the hope that they one day will be greater than you. Ladies, if you're single, look around. You're welcome. Or you can put your hands down. Hey, there's a population crisis and I'm just trying to help out, all right? But I'm a father. And as a father, I am writing the origin story of my children each and every day. For my son, I am the answer to this question. Who is my son's father? I'm not talking about a paternity test. I'm talking about a character test. Christians, pastors, friends, and family would come to me during the lockdowns and they told me to shut up. Stop speaking out. Be responsible. Stop protesting. You're a father. You could get hurt. What kind of example are you setting? Think of your children. That's exactly what I was thinking of. Is my son's father a coward? Is that his origin story? I was deciding who my son's father was with each passing day and with passing each test. When I speak of ancestors, of appealing to our heritage, of fighting for freedoms bought with blood and sweat and tears, I'm not just talking about the past generations and the fathers who are now long gone. I'm talking about the present generations and the fathers in waiting, including the ones in this room. Men, you will decide who is your son's father. Who is your daughter's father? What do they learn from their father? You are already writing the origin story of your children, even if they're not here yet. Just a few hours after I said those words, appealing to our ancestors and the freedoms they fought for, Victoria Police lined up like a firing squad and opened fire with rubber bullets into the unarmed, non-violent protesters. Their rubber bullets bounced off the stones of the war memorial that we built to honor those who sacrificed their lives for our freedom. Now, you can watch the full documentary, Battleground Melbourne, for free on my website, topherfield.com. Just go to the documentary tab. That is why I can stand here today and speak on limiting our obedience. But truth be told, I'm not here to talk about COVID, nor the things that I did in the past. I'm here to talk about you and the things that need to be done in the present, about what it means to be the descendants, whether by blood or by adoption, of men who gave their lives, their fortunes, and risked their sacred honor as true fathers, giving up everything in the hope that you, their descendants, could become something even greater. But you and I both agreed at the start that the freedoms they sacrificed for are now in danger of being lost. You are the sons of those fathers. Will you allow that to happen on your watch? America, you cannot remain the land of the free unless you are the home of the brave. The American people must throw off the slavery of 1984 and recapture the spirit of 1776. And let me illustrate what the slavery of 1984 looks like with a video from Melbourne during lockdowns. We see a courageous protester speaking with a heavily armed police officer at the height of the violence. Excuse me.
Go home. Otherwise, they start issuing tickets. We don't want to do it, but we will do it. Right?
Well, if you don't want to do it, don't do it. Stand up for what you believe in rather than paycheck.
Just go home, all right? We get paid to do this, mate. I'm just as over this fucking protest as you are. By protest, I mean lockdown, all right?
Fair enough,
unfortunately,
fair enough.
I've got to do what I've got to do.
You don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. You're choosing to do it for
I'm not
paycheck.
skilled to do anything else, mate. So unfortunately, at this time of my life, that's what I have to
and
do.
the people of us that aren't skilled, we don't get paid. We're not getting food at the moment.
I hear you, mate.
They are the slaves to the spirit of 1984. And of course, they weren't the only ones, because compromise takes many forms.
I regret having gotten the vaccine. I really regret having gotten the vaccine. I'm sure it's fine, but I just wish when the state told me to do something, I'd be the sort of person who said no. But it turns out I'm the sort of person who says, fine. I don't understand what's going on. You're telling me it's important. Okay. And all they had to do was say, you won't be allowed to go into pubs for like a month. And I was like, put it in me. That's what I'm upset about, is that I had a principle temporarily. Like, oh, if I was in Nazi Germany, I would have stood up to the regime. I wouldn't stand up to not being able to go to a pub for a month. I would have been like, Anne Frank, she's in that attic there. I saw her. It doesn't matter what the point of principle was. The point is I would have been a chill. And that, I have to live with that for the rest of my 3 or 4 more years before I have a heart attack.
Compromise is tempting because it rewards you today, but it punishes you for the rest of your life. But doing the right thing, well, it'll cost you today. But then it rewards you in ways that money cannot buy. I want to contrast the people we just heard from with one of my personal heroes, Claudette Colvin. Who knows who she is? Not many. I'm amazed. Rosa Parks credits Claudette Colvin for giving her the idea of protesting by not moving to the back of the bus. But unlike Rosa, Claudette never got the credit she deserved, and the reason why is important. She was a precocious, opinionated, loud 15-year-old black girl from Montgomery, Alabama. She got herself arrested for refusing to move to the back of the bus. Now, what she did was right. It was courageous. We recognize that it was civil disobedience, and she was early. She did it before Rosa Parks. So what went wrong? The person who goes first is, by definition, an outlier, a risk taker, a mistake maker. First movers bring baggage. They're a package deal. Claudette Colvin was found to be pregnant out of wedlock as a black teenager in the 1960s who was already being prosecuted by the police for refusing to move to the back of the bus. That made her just about the worst person you could possibly be in that place at that time. She was then rejected by her family, her church, and her community. She had to move to New York to start a new life with no friends, no family, as a single mum with a criminal record hanging over her head. That was the thank you she received. Outliers, people who are willing to go first. They come with baggage because they go first on lots of things, and that means they make a lot of mistakes. Sometimes they're very much disliked. Sometimes they're hard to defend. Sometimes they're kind of assholes. Which brings me to the title of chapter 13 of my first book. Chapter 13, In Defense of Assholes. Now listen. I'm not being crass. I spelled it with an R, and that makes it sophisticated. Okay? I also spelled defense correctly, just so you know. First movers are outliers. They usually have ugly pasts, and people from their past are very happy to line up for their 15 seconds of fame to talk shit about them. The 2 minutes hate is very easy against assholes. But without them, nobody goes first. And if nobody goes first, the tyrants win. We need them. See, nice guys don't change the world. And the people who do change the world will be called assholes by the nice guys who stood by and did nothing. Claudette was excommunicated by her family, her church, and her town. And it took until 2021, when Claudette was in her 80s, before her criminal record was finally expunged. She paid a terrible, personal, lifelong price for limiting her obedience. But Claudette does not focus on what it cost her. She says, I was a spark, and it caught on. Living by your conscience will cost you. Believe me, I know, it will cost you. And you don't know in advance if your actions are going to make any difference at all. But I was a spark, and that spark caught on. That's the spirit of 1776. I'm going to finish with a video clip from the greatest day of my life. This was in November 2021, and after 18 months of violent madness, we, the protesters, finally broke the will of Victoria Police, and the police refused to continue their violent enforcement of lockdowns. The government did not back down. The police said, we're not doing this anymore, and the government had no choice. We won. We won, thanks to the courage, thanks to having courage, determination, and the power of being an asshole. The harshest and longest lockdowns on earth were finally over, and hundreds of thousands of my fellow Victorians turned out to celebrate. And this is what I said to them on that day.
getting to this moment has been a long road. A journey that has come at a high cost to many, many good people. Daniel Andrews has abused us, threatened us, sent armed agents of the state to some of our homes, and yet here we stand. Daniel Andrews has arrested us, imprisoned some of us, and sent men to shoot at us, and here we stand. Daniel Andrews tried to break us, break our will with the full weight of his twisted so-called laws. But we realized a deeper truth, that good people break bad laws. Future generations are watching us. They are reading about this moment in a history book, and they will go to you and they will say, "What did you do?" I am proud to say that I risked everything. And I will accept nothing less than freedom. Freedom for me, freedom for my children, and freedom for us all.
I was a spark. I was a spark. I am a spark. And I am here today in the hope that I may spark something in you. Because the future is in your hands. Future generations are watching you. And they are reading about the 250th birthday of the United States of America in a history book. And they are asking themselves, what did you do? If America is to remain the land of the free, it will be because of the brave. Not only the brave who fight against freedom's enemies foreign, but also the brave who stand up against freedom's enemies domestic. America, you are in danger, but it is not too late. It's up to you. Will you become slaves to the spirit of 1984? Or are you still the sons and the daughters of 1776? And will your descendants be proud to say that they are sons and daughters of yours? Thank you.